Hello everyone, Connor Whitmore here again with another video for you on the Nawtystep channel, and it's time for another Extra Nawties monthly roundup. Gonna go over some EPs, albums and compilations that I wasn't able to review in full, but which I still thought interesting enough to share my opinions on them with you. Shorter reviews as per because there is a lot to get through. I will be identifying my main points with each one and hopefully showing you a couple things you hadn't heard of before, covering up to and including the 28th of January. I'll be covering them in alphabetical order by way of artist or record label name, and they're all linked in the description box down below. Before we get going here, there will be a list of extra or special mentions at the end of the video, ones that I couldn't talk about here because then there would just be too many, but I recommend checking them out as well if you are yet to. And so kicking off this installment, we have the new EP from Bandlez, Limit Break. Some pretty powerful bro step / trap hybrid stuff here. A couple of really good ideas, and I think some of his best dubstep we've heard yet, in my opinion anyway. First half, I think I prefer to the second in terms of the percussive frailties being a bit more evident in the final two tracks we get here. The ideas still attention grabbing in them, but without the necessary punch beneath them. But overall an EP I'm sure any dubstep lover will get something out of. If you enjoy that genre and are yet to hear, check it out. Next up, the new Anti-Negative EP, a very interesting one and actually pretty fantastic from track 3 onwards on the heaviness front, unleashing a new side to his production, I think. The middle tune in particular, Mentasm, is really well articulated and confrontational, and it has a certain vibe to it and just switches it up brilliantly going forward and over its course. I also like how it eases you in with the opener, gradually becoming more industrial and alienating. All the good of his music with a newfound gnarliness. Then we have the new Bandlez EP, a couple of nice moments in here, the musicality in Fun, the funky twangs in Gooba Gabba, the sampling in Meme Graveyard. The production, I think, also, in comparison to past projects of theirs, seems cleaner and sharper, and it clearly sounds like them, you know. Their style is very evident throughout, but I'm not sure it expands on their approach that significantly. It's not particularly far-reaching on the ideas front. Some of it sounding far too similar to other tracks of theirs in my opinion, so in some respects you can spot the development and progress, and others not so much. After that, the new Bassweight compilation, a good outlay of the different types of rhythm you can get, starting with the kind I'm not that big on without much ingenuity or interesting sounds on offer, but it proceeds to come into its own with the cuts from Hukae, Neonix and Saiga, a couple of other moments littered in for more spice and flavour as well. And I know it's rare to get good compilations, but I feel they set a standard with Syndicate Volume 2, and it'll be hard to reach that level again, in my opinion. New Carbon EP is okay, a good range of styles, but many of the drop ideas are a bit meh. Either that or his production sounds quite threadbare in the heaviest moments. Very much a percussion thing, I think. Some great overlaying stuff, but not often backed up by a solid bass, meaning that the drops don't have quite the fullest impact they should have. That being said, I do love the free-spirited appeal of it from start to finish, and there are some pretty good ideas here, can't lie. Full of life across dubstep, trap, house, D&B and more, so on that front, really quite ambitious and impressive. Moving on, the new Confession compilation. I said a few months ago I thought it was unlikely Alchemy 5 would live up to Alchemy 4, with it being one of my favourite EPs of the whole of last year, and the same I think can be said for 6. You can't help but compare, with 4 being so good. And here we have another compilation that just doesn't inspire all that much, and if I had to pick just one, then it would probably be the opener by DLMT and Marco Mars, with most of it sounding unadventurous, bland, and a far cry from 4, which just has so much. Better than 5, I think, for sure, but doesn't come close to 4, and I hate to go back to it, but again, I feel like I have to. Next up, another Current Value album. Another extensive project from him I'm getting next to nothing from, I'm afraid. Multiple EPs and albums from him in the last year or so, and I think in the imminent future, he is better off doubling down and making something far more forward-thinking and adventurous, if you will. A couple of moments here and there to enjoy, but not all that much more for me. And yeah, as I said, he should spend more time making something more boundary pushing and yeah, forward thinking, as I mentioned, like his stuff of the past. After that, new Deathmage EP, some good savage dubstep on show here, solidly put together, great sounds involved, and I appreciate the relentlessness of the delivery here. Percussion, I think, generally needs more snap though. Snares in particular doesn't quite back it up well enough. The third tune, Wrathmage, I think is the most impactful that way. Something that I'm sure will improve over time as he becomes more experienced in the whole production thing. If you enjoy Dr. Ozy, Control Freak, the kind of dubstep that's grating in a good way, I would definitely recommend checking it out. Then the new E-Hide EP. Unfortunately, can't say there's anything I'm really getting into here. It seems like the life and feeling has been sucked out of his music a bit when you think about what he was making before in previous years and whatnot. A perfect example of going down the darker, rhythm-influenced route and it not resulting in any notably fresh or interesting ideas for me. Hate to say it. If he can re-engage a bit what his older music was so good for, that sprightliness and quirky delivery, I think his style would be loved in the modern dubstep climate. Next up, the new Graphite EP, not the most remarkable collection I've heard from him, can't lie. The ideas not as wild as previous tunes of his, and the percussion is a bit flat in important ways. Not quite going the extra mile in all departments, I feel. Not a lot here making me want to go back to it again and again, if anything. It may be that he's run out of ideas for the time being, having released a lot in the last year or so, and I think it would be nice to see him take a lot longer on his next EP. The debut Hex Cougar EP is alright, I appreciate the different approaches on offer here, but a lot of the production is quite harsh and gets in the way of me enjoying it a fair bit. He integrates vocals really well. I think he has the general blend between classical and outright heavy there, but just needs more refining on the execution of pretty much everything. And a bit more subtlety at times, I think, with the delivery. Drowning in My Dreams being the best example here, could have been far more powerful as a future garage tune if it wasn't so full on. New Hukae EP, super fresh, loving the vibrancy of his synth usage in contrast with the dark, scything undertones provided by the backdrops. A rhythm, of course, and as usual, I think, runs a risk more than other genres of repeating ideas too much. And this one does that, but the sound is so colourful and sharp that it never gets boring. It's high definition, gritty, underground dubstep. A masterclass, I think, in keeping the listener's attention, like evil video game music. I think that is the best way I would put it. Fun and devilish in equal measure, and I think difficult not to like on that front, if you're into dubstep anyway. Has a joyousness to it that makes it infectious, and I never thought I would say that about rhythm music, but I find I'm saying it more and more with each Black Label release, quite frankly. I just do not and will never get the hype with Jaws, the definition of a one or two hit wonder, and it baffles me why he gets the recognition he does, because everything here, once again, is pretty average. A couple of nice grooves here and there, but that really is the extent of my good feeling with it. His tunes often feel like they took about half an hour to make. The new Mad Zoo compilation, if you may remember, its predecessor placed in my top albums of last year, and it was always going to take some beating, but safe to say I enjoy this one, but not loads in comparison. The production I think is pretty great across the board, but the ideas don't feel as inventive for the most part, lacking a spice and flavour in the ideas. Yeah, it's also far longer, so the ill feeling is drawn out a bit. I do have my favourites though. The 3-4 is the outright best for me. Then Acrylics, Zeal, Matzo, Kraish and Rohan are all pretty decent as well. So to be fair, a lot of good here too. Next up, the final compilation from one of the most important boundary-pushing labels in bass music ever, Meth Lab, and quite a special and typically ambitious way to close things off here. Some fantastic material from the likes of Aldeca, War, Culprit, Sub Yao, Except, IHR, but I think I could highlight moments in all 15 that I enjoy a lot. Pretty much everything there is to love about well-produced industrial music of different genres as well. A lot of scope to it, and I think most would love it, even if they don't hear that stuff all that much or aren't as inclined to listen to it all that much or usually. One of the best compilations I've heard in the last few years and probably ever. Representative of what Meth Lab have been about. Shame that they are stopping and ending, but I think it gives us a chance to reflect on how amazing they've been. A really, really good way to sign off, and check it out for sure. Yeah, even as I said, if you don't check that kind of stuff out normally, I'm pretty sure you will find something you love, and from there, check out a load of other stuff from that label. You will be amazed. It will be a real journey. After that, the new Nitty Gritty EP. Don't get me wrong, I'm all for his polymath approach to music production, but I feel dubstep isn't quite as much for him as other genres he's been trying out. And this is by no means the first time I've thought this. The final two songs are far better for me than the first three, to be fair, Shenzhen being my personal pick. Does say it all though, perhaps, that one is a hybrid trap, freeform tune, not a dubstep one. Of course he can do what he wants, and I never want to feel like I'm inhibiting him in any way, but he's so good at making house, and he could really double down on that. But can't lie, I do appreciate his free approach, and the fact that he feels like he can try making anything, you know, have his hand at all different kinds of genres. I really rate that, so yeah. Kudos. Following on from there, new Noisia EP, more time-stopping storytelling music from Bass Music's greatest trio, made for a video game to my knowledge and has quite the voyaging feel to it to match. Everything about their production is epic, unbelievably full and rich, intricately put together, grand and huge without ever going over the top. Masterful construction. Oh, they just put together collections like this for fun, I swear. A lot of it is sonically insane, Wallhack being my favourite. Hopefully a sign of more to come from them in their final year. Then new QZB, a really good EP here, some of the best material I've heard this year so far for sure. They just keep churning out the good stuff, so I suppose a little surprise on that front. In particular, I'm loving the MUMBUR second drop on breakneck speed, a predominantly D&B song, I hasten to add. Already one of the moments of the year for me, no doubt on that. I don't think anyone else gets visceral and warm so on point as a combination in D&B right now like they do. And I can't wait for the following volumes, one of the best EPs I've heard so far in 2020. Moving on, the new Rushdown compilation, a brilliant comp for knowing exactly what a label is about, especially great in it being pretty much the only one at the very forefront of colourful melodic bass music. The shining light and example, I suppose. Perhaps also even too bright for me to be talking about it here on this channel, some may say, but I think there is enough filth woven into the uplifting stuff for it to be very worthy of me talking about it right here, right now. Far more good than amazing material here, I would have to say. Favourites definitely come from Datamosh and Got, LM, Cosmo and Skybreak, but lots of well-crafted tunage here across the 13. After that, same thing again with Sadu, I'm afraid. Decent ideas, nice atmosphere, samples and more, but the overall production quality just isn't that sharp, full or rounded, meaning that the heaviness, most of it, if not all of it, we don't get the full force of. A real potential here. In particular, I like the ideas in tracks like Machine Gun Blues. A great idea, but just not executed to the max, which speaks for the whole EP. Yeah, overall, I would have to say. Okay, if you are big on blends of freeform, dub, and trap, then this new compilation from Spicy Boys is for you. Pure and simple, a lot of fuzzy, extraterrestrial bass, sharp percussion, cheeky samples, the works. This, for me, is what Wakan, as the leading label in that genre, should be like in terms of matching ideas and production quality. What this style is best for, right here. Good all round to the extent that I don't want to single anyone out. They all have great things about them. A really, really solid listen front to back. Next up, UBUR. I appreciate the experimentation here. I think it just about falls on the right side of that because of the range of it. Not many great ideas to show for it though, working alongside that kind of experimentation. One thing, trying things out, but I think you do have to back that up. I do rate the ambition, but I'm not wowed per se. The title track being my favourite, Make Some Noise is alright, but not a lot beyond that. Moving on, these Valentino Khan remixes, which are okay. Have to admit, I expected more from Charmy, not big on the repetition there, and the Drezzo didn't particularly wow me like he has in the past. Eliminate was pretty great for the most part. Ibranovsky and Shade surprised me in a good way. So, I mean, overall, yeah, just okay really. Penultimately, the new X and G EP. If you may remember, I put them in my favourite albums of the decade video for Anomalies, which is a really interesting and different sounding project, but that magic isn't quite conjured here. It's still different and I love what they're going for, but that doesn't mean I love the ideas or the production outright. Not a lot that's grabbing me across the 3 tunes, the VIP aside, of Monster at the end, which is actually pretty good. But I do still recommend for what they're trying to do. You may remember them also from the Dog Blood EP from last year. The vocal in For Mind, I think they added in. Very rounded and tribal sounds, so yeah, if that appeals to you, check it out. And finally, the new Zeds Dead collaboration, album, compilation thing, whatever you want to call it. The Subtronics collab is the only great one here for me. The Urban Dawn and Champagne Drip are alright, but pretty much every other either has weak production or weak ideas. I have to say, in my opinion, I really appreciate and always have, always will, the duo trying out different genres over the years and bringing new producers in and into the limelight more. But at the moment and last few years, jack of few trades and master of none, for me anyway. Only really a few moments across the whole thing that I think really click. A cool idea bringing so many producers together, but unfortunately a lot of forgettable stuff here. A steady fall for them over time, and I think this is another good example of that. But there we have it, guys, the January 2020 edition of the monthly Extra Nawties Roundup. Thank you very much, and as always, for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed. The special mentions from last month, again, not as many as usual, but just going to put them up on the screen here for you all to see. Yep, have a little pause if you want to note them down, take a screenshot, whatever. These will not be in the description box down below, so yeah, I recommend doing that. But with regards to the EPs, albums, and compilations reviewed in this video, which ones did you enjoy, which others not so much? Are there any that I missed out? Let me know in the comments down below. If you enjoyed the video, then be sure to give it a big old thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Hit the notification bell along the way so you can be notified whenever I upload a new video to the channel, and my social media accounts are linked in the description box down below. And lastly, if you want to check out some other monthly roundups on the channel, I shall link them just here. And lastly, if it's naughty, then you know, guys, so be sure, as always, to keep it naughty and stay safe, and I shall see all of you legends in the next one. Bass Music 2020, roll on February. Peace out.